My name is Jamie Hyson, and I chose to do my research project presentation on how discrimination against LGBT people has progressed over the years. I am interested in this issue, as I believe everyone should be, that everyone has the right to be happy, and who they choose to share their happiness with and live their life with should be up to them. I don't believe that any sort of government or religion should dictate their life decisions. I think this course has helped me research this issue, and I think what we've learned in the course would help and benefit other people by having them expand their minds and try to see different sides of the issues and just gather every piece of information they can to make a knowledge-based decision. And I feel if people stopped focusing on gender and started looking at the happiness that they could have, the world would be a totally different place. My first article is of the social science category, and it is titled "The Troubled Rise of Gay Rights Diplomacy." I think the central question that I came up with for this article is, are gay rights the same as human rights? One of the main advocates and key role players in the rights for homosexuality and LGBT people in America is Hillary Clinton, and one of her more famous quotes during these sort of campaigns is, "Gay rights are human rights, and human rights are gay rights. No practice or tradition trumps the human rights that belong to all of us." But unfortunately, not everyone shares the same views as Miss Clinton. In 2009, Uganda was at the lead of upwards of 35 African countries passing a bill that stated the death penalty for any gay person. And additionally, not only that, but if you were a family member or a friend that failed to report them, you were entitled to 7 years in prison. There were a lot of variations of this bill that rose about in Mali, Malawi, Nigeria. In 2013, Vladimir Putin signed a law including an arrest and a fine for anyone that dared to promote anything LGBT. So not only was it illegal to try to marry someone of the same sex as yourself, but you could not hold up any sort of poster that said you were for gay rights. And the Supreme Court in India voted to reinstate a prohibition on homosexual acts. And also in 2014, if you were a gay man in Iran, this was punishable by death, which is pretty much the worst thing that you could imagine. However, the death that they gave to you was made a little bit worse because it was a public hanging in front of your peers. These are just some of the outrageous laws that are happening across the ocean. It's needless to say that some places are still having trouble grasping human rights, not to mention gay rights. My next article was also the social sciences category, was titled "An Examination of Same-Sex Couples' Retirement Benefit and Tax Benefit in a Post-Obergefell World." This article really just looked towards the IRS and the Department of Labor and the Defense of Marriage Act and how those things were affected when the rise of the gay community became prominent. It all started in the United States versus Windsor case, when two women were lawfully married in Canada, returned to New York, where they resided, and unfortunately, 2 years later, one of them passed away. The remaining woman, Windsor, attempted to apply for spousal estate tax exemption and was denied by the IRS on the basis of DOMA. Windsor then argued that DOMA itself was unconstitutional. The author compares this case to also the case of Brown versus Board of Education, whereas denying one part of the population civil rights sends the message that they are inferior. Ultimately, Windsor won the case and changed the way the federal system operates today, involving the civil union, domestic partnership, retirement benefits, payment of Social Security, and also Medicare benefits. My next article of the social sciences category is titled Marriage and Family, LGBT Individuals and Same-Sex Couples. The question that arose for me while reading this was really just, what about the kids? So how do same-sex and heterosexual couples differ when it comes to adoption and child rearing? And one thing that I found when I was researching was that the percentage of people that were pro same-sex couples adopting dramatically rose in from 1992 to 2014. It used to be 29%, and it's now over half. It's 63%. And in the early 2000s, Judge Richard Posner went public with his opinion of this, stating that Indiana's marriage ban for same-sex couples thought heterosexual couples to be sexually irresponsible, producing unwanted children by the carload, and they were being rewarded with the right to marry, whereas same-sex couples who are unable to have children of their own make it a point to thoroughly think through their decisions for adopting, and therefore this makes them model citizens, but their reward is not being able to marry. However, some people are saying that it's having a psychological disadvantage for the children of same-sex couples. But the results are in, and statistics say that there is no difference in the social, psychological health, and just overall well-being of children that are raised from same-sex couples to hetero parents. And furthermore, any disadvantages or hardships that the kids feel or go through is because they were children from a previous heterosexual couple that went through a separation or divorce because one of the parents decided to live their life as a gay or lesbian person. So really that just speaks more to the troubles associated with divorce and separation on children rather than their parent is of the LGBT community now. Another article of mine, the first of the humanities categories, is titled 5 Reasons Why Margaret Somerville is Wrong About Same-Sex Marriage and the Rights of Children. And I thought this article had the question, does marriage equal the right to give birth? Are those two the same? And I chose this article because it really just uses the contrasting point of view that is sadly still around today. She argues biological parenthood versus legal parenthood, saying that legalizing marriage for same-sex couples will remove the biological bond between the parents and the children, as it is seen in the institutionalized norms of marriage. So society would go from biological parenthood to legal parenthood, which according to Somerville is morally objectionable due to the fact that it normalizes same-sex marriage families and gives their children, they would be denied their fundamental human rights as it came to their biological origin. So she is claiming that the institution will become further broken down and it'll start giving way to things much worse, such as polygamy. My next humanities article is valuing all families. And I think it comes with the question, what does the government think is best? By 2008, 30 of our states had passed amendments denying same-sex couples marriage and all the benefits that go along with it. Additionally, 15 different states passed laws that strictly stated marriage as a union between one man and one woman. In this article, the author argues that the promotion of the traditional institution of marriage-based family by the government goes against two of the liberal democratic values that we as American people claim are fundamental to our society, those being liberty and individuality. Instead, in this article, the author suggests that we need to move on to a new structure, one that is flexible and customizable. She calls this a custom family, where people would receive positive and public support for the caretaking services they provide to one another. For my last humanities article, I chose one called What Male-Female Complementary Makes Possible? Marriage as a 2-in-1 Flesh Union. This article really was aimed more towards the religion aspect and gave me the question, is the church stuck in the past? It was interesting because they tell you that traditional Catholic teaching states sexual acts can be morally right only within marriage, and only a man and a woman can marry. At one point, they make a blanket statement that the church sees marriage as a distinctive type of community where the sole purpose is sharing lives between a man and woman, and only their lives would be filled by bearing and rearing children. So what does this brings up the question of what does this mean for infertile couples, or the couples that desperately want to have kids but can't, or don't want to have kids in general? What does this mean for them, to the church? According to Catholic teachings, the marital acts of a husband and wife whose sexual union cannot give them children are morally right. However, non-reproductive sexual acts, heterosexual acts, are morally wrong because they are closed to reproduction. So you can see how this would be conflicting. My social science articles were really geared more toward the law and politics of things, how they worked, and benefits of like Medicare and just health benefits overall. My humanities articles were more really about changing the system and opinions and religious beliefs. So I leave it with the quote from the controversial speech of Lin-Manuel Miranda of love is love is love is love. And I think if people could take a minute and think about how this affects their lives or the lives of their loved ones, or even just someone they know, a neighbor, they could see what a change would be made if the world just thought about other people's feelings instead of worrying about their own self and how they would be impacted. And I feel that even though we've come a long way with laws and the progress that has been made, I think there's still a long way to go, and it's really just going to be, I think, sadly, a long journey, but one that I believe is worth making.